Listen, I got to be honest with you. I'm not even going to lie to you. Miss Miller was kind to me. The parole board, I've never had parole boards like you guys have been kind to me. You gave me chances. I can't even sit here and lie. You did. So I'm not going to sit here and say you didn't. But I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a violent person. I'm not going to go out and hurt nobody. I'm not a sex offender, never been. And I'm not trying to make excuses. I've been working really hard on my decision-making skills,
Whenever you start with, I'm not going to lie to you, I'll be honest with you, it's always like, oof, grimace time. But hey, he won me over it. I'm not a sex offender. And he's not that we can see in the record. But let's jump in with the hearing and I'll unpack it at the end.
Before I get started, I just want to make a note here, because in the parole violation report submitted by your parole officer, there was at the end of the parole violation report, your PO wrote that on 3/5/24, this PO removed the obey all laws charge for the subject on this parole violation notice for the THC at Hartford Correctional Center. He received an unconditional discharge on this matter in court on 3/1/24. He was also not on parole when this charge occurred, as he was already inside of Hartford CC, booked as a technical violation at the time the event occurred. So I'm not going to be discussing the first charge of obey all laws, okay? So all we're going to discuss today is drugs and halfway house placement, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So charge number 2 of obey all laws under drugs. Your PO reported that on or around 2/27/24, you used cocaine. Charge number 3 of halfway house placement. Your parole officer reported that on 2/15/24, at approximately 12:34 a.m., you approached the front desk at Open Hearth Halfway House and asked the staff if you could go outside to get fresh air, as you were frustrated over a conversation you had with a family member. You then proceeded to go outside to the courtyard with a large backpack of your belongings and disappear from the premises. Your whereabouts in the community were unknown until you reported to the Hartford Parole Office on 2/28/24, therefore making you unaccountable in the community for approximately 13 days. Based on your behavior, you're in clear and direct violation of your signed parole conditions, specifically under halfway house placement, as you violated a rule in your signed halfway house agreement, where it states that I will not leave the physical confines of the halfway house unless authorized by program staff or parole. You did not have permission from anyone to exit the halfway house nor stay in the community for 13 days. All right, so that's what your parole officer charged you with. I do have evidence from parole. Exhibit A are your parole conditions. B is a halfway house agreement. C, Open Hearth incident report. D is a still shot photo from Open Hearth security camera. E is a voluntary admission. F, remand to custody. G is a state police report. H, critical incident brief from Hartford Correctional. I is a contraband photo. J, notice of parole violation. And K is a parole violation report. All right, so that's what I have from parole. I do not have a parole officer here to offer any additional evidence at this time. So is there anything, excuse me, is there anything you wish to say regarding those charges I just read?
Well, I mean, as far as leaving the halfway house, I actually had a job interview in the morning, and what really happened, so what happened is when I got sent to that halfway house, it's in Hartford. I'm not from out there, but when I was in here, I'll be honest with you, I had like a store, you know what I mean, to make money, because I didn't have a job or anything in here and nobody could send me money. So when I got there was a guy there that owed me some money. He owed me some money from here, but he went to another dorm here, so I couldn't get the money, but he said, oh, I got you. But I run into him as soon as I get there, and he says, oh, I seen him, he says, oh, I'm gonna give you the money I owe you, whatever. Then what happened was that I didn't say nothing to him for a couple of days, whatever, because I just got there trying to figure my way around. I didn't have much. And he says to me, oh, I ain't giving you shit, you're a punk or whatever. And I said, listen, man, I said, you know what? I'm not gonna get into this shit with you, whatever, you know what I mean? I said, I want my fucking money. I'm being honest, that's what I told him. So I left, and he was on the other side of the building, but in the same floor as me because he was DOC. So this is the night of that. The next day I had a job interview at 1:00. And everybody knew I had it because I was happy about it, because I was, happy that I was going to go get a job, and the guy, I had a good feeling I was going to get the job, you know what I mean? It would look good for me. Or at least I felt that way. So everybody knew. So now all of a sudden there's cars pulling up in the front of the building and people are like, oh, we're going to get you tomorrow. Cause I guess he's fucking gang man or whatever he is. I don't know what he does or whatever. But I'm in the city in Hartford. I was scared. I'm gonna be honest with you, I was scared because they were saying, "Hey, tomorrow when you come out, they were yelling shit up to the window, driving by. I'm not talking about like two. They got cameras there, but I mean, the shit is kind of loose, wide open. But anyway, I'm not trying to make excuses for it, but I probably could have went down. I didn't want to go down and tell. You know what I mean? Just. I don't know. It just, I saw then my sister. So a couple hours later, my sister calls and says she has a miscarriage, lost her baby. She's my little sister. And she's fucking crying on the phone. I need you. Where are you? This, that, and the other. And here I am. So naturally, I'm thinking the worst, case scenario and my bad thinking, decision making. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to let these dudes fucking get me tomorrow. I'm just going to fucking take off. You know what I mean? And hopefully they'll put me in another halfway house or whatever, or I'll contact them tomorrow or something, and then you get out there. And then I started thinking, oh no, they're going to fucking put me in jail. And she contacted me. Listen, I got to be honest with you. I'm not even going to lie to you. Miss Miller was kind to me. The parole board, I've never had parole boards like you guys have been kind to me. You gave me chances. I can't even sit here and lie. You did, so I'm not going to sit here and say you didn't. But I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a violent person. I'm not going to go out and hurt nobody. I'm not a sex offender, never been. And I'm not trying to make excuses. I've been working really hard on my decision-making skills, and my life was not easy growing up. I didn't, I'm not still here. I am. It sounds like I'm making excuses, but it's really hard sometimes that you just subconsciously do shit, or you my fight or flight mode comes in. And I get scared or the only thing I know what to do is either, fight or run, run. Right. So you don't get in trouble really, because I didn't want to fight the guy. I really didn't. I'm 50-some years old. I'm an old man. I'm not built like that no more, to be fighting people. That's kid shit. I should have said, I should have run it off.
How did parole find you? Did you turn yourself in eventually? Or
No, I called them every day and told them, listen, I'm not, I spent a couple days with my sister and then a girl I knew. And, and I was like, listen, I'm not out committing no crimes. I had a few dollars in the bank. And I was like, listen, I'm going to turn myself in. And they kept saying, well, turn yourself in. I called every day. Sometimes I called 2-3 times a day because I really wanted to talk. I called Esposito. Michelle Esposito in Norwich, because she was my former PO for 15 months. And she's like, listen, and Miller, they told me, listen, when you turn yourself in, bring clothes, because we're probably not gonna, you might not go to jail because you didn't commit any crimes. You left, you shouldn't have left, but we might put you in a program or in another place or something like that, and you might not go to jail. So I was like, well, listen, I'm going to turn myself in. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to stop procrastinating. I'm going to go down. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm not going to run. I'm going to fucking be smart, and I'm going to do the right thing because regardless of what, it's like. So this is what happened, right? So one day, right before I turned myself in and I decided I was going to do it, I almost physically was sick and disgusted with myself. I never felt like that. Usually I'll just go to jail and say, hey, fuck it. I'll just go to jail and go gamble and do whatever. But I was physically, I couldn't eat. I had bacon and eggs in front of me. I couldn't even eat it. I was just disgusted and sick with myself and my decisions and what I did. And I was like, man, you know what? I know that I'm going to go in tomorrow, regardless of what they do. I'm going to go in. I'm going to do the right thing. And just hope for the best, and try to think positive. And as soon as I got there, they threw the cuffs on me. But, I gave them my word I was going to come in, and I did. And I came in early in the morning. So, as to not have them jammed up doing paperwork all day long, right, or whatever.
Right. I'm just thinking, because I'm reading, as I read the parole violation report, they gave you several chances to turn yourself in. So if you If you turned yourself in maybe on day 1, day 2, day 3, you probably wouldn't be sitting here today.
You are correct.
Right?
I mean, but when you don't, I mean, when you're out there, you don't think like that. You're scared, you think the worst. I'm thinking I'm going back to jail no matter what. And, they're just going to say, fuck me because, excuse my language, in the past, listen, I'm so used to being fucking lied to, cheated on, screwed over, fucked over in some way, one way or another. It's hard to sometimes find, that common
Right.
positive thinking is hard sometimes to come by, but regardless of that, I mean, I really don't have nothing bad to say about them people or you or anybody because you didn't do nothing wrong. It was I do poor decision making. And like I said, I didn't go out and commit any crimes or,
Right.
I mean, I really needed to go get a job and stuff like that. Because when I leave now, even though now, I mean, I got like almost a little less than 5 months. I really need to have a job or money saved in a safe place because if I don't, I'm going to be with my back against the wall again when I get out. And the opportunities I was given, I just fucking, I don't know, man. I don't know what to say. I apologize. I mean, all I can say is I apologize.
Okay. All right. So let me go through the charges. So charge number 1, condition of bail laws under drugs. I do make a finding of probable cause based on evidence provided by the state, specifically the voluntary admission form signed and the parole violation report as well. And the charge number 2 of halfway house placement, I do make a finding of probable cause based on evidence provided by the state, specifically the open hearts incident report, as well as the parole violation report. All right, so you were gone from the halfway house for 13 days. And I do find that serious enough to warrant revocation. And I have determined that you should be detained while you wait for your revocation hearing. So at your revocation hearing, myself or another hearing examiner will determine if you violated the conditions of your parole and what, if any, sanction should be imposed at that time. So you don't have any pending charges, is that correct?
I don't have no charges.
Okay. So I'm going to schedule a tentative date of when I would like to see you for the revocation hearing. That may change, but I do want to give you a date now so you're not kind of wondering when it will be. So I'm going to see you tentatively April 22nd, okay? Which is in about a month. And I will see you for the revocation hearing. And I know you do have a EOS date of the August 15th date, but I would try to do something before that date. So that's why I'm seeing you rather early for the revocation hearing, okay? So tentative revocation for 22. All right, do you have any questions for me, sir?
Nah, I mean, they brought me by then, you're probably just gonna say discharge.
Not necessarily, okay? I don't know if you have supervision to follow or anything like that, but you never know,
I don't have
okay?
nothing. I don't have nothing.
So you never know what can happen, okay? So I will see you again next month, okay?
Thank
All
you.
right, this concludes the preliminary hearing for Peter Smith, number 188257. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
There was so much word salad in this hearing that I actually feel like I've gained a few pounds after watching it. There's something in the water, or maybe the dressing in Connecticut, because these hearings are just wild. I can't get over the fact that how many show up to these hearings and just curse and curse and curse. In the 2,000 or so Louisiana hearings, we've maybe seen someone use foul language 2 times, 3 times. I mean, and here it's just like a normal thing. And what's also interesting is they're never reprimanded. It's like, whatever, it's okay. And it's not okay. It's not okay. This is the most important type of interview that you can have. Then your next important interview would probably be a job interview. Why is this the most important? If you're locked up, you can't have the job interview. And if you can't control yourself cursing here, how are you going to control yourself in any other environment? yet we see it over and over, and I can't get over that fact. But mostly it's, how does the board allow them? And again, I think it's like a culture. It's got to be a culture top down thing. If the parole board allows it, you got to imagine that under them, if you want to look at it that way, like prison guards allow it. And, I don't know, does the warden allow it? And then on top of the parole, does everyone just okay with it? Can you show up to a court in Connecticut and curse and the judge would just pretend it's not happening? I don't know. I know I'm making assumptions, but to me, it seems quite bizarre. And it seems to be, it should be the responsibility of the board to remind them that that they should not be talking in that language. Okay, now that I got that off my chest, what a strange interview. I just don't get it. It's like he was scared the guy was going to hurt him. He ran away, and then, he should have just came back, but he didn't. He was his sister and the miscarriage and his friend and his... Oh my gosh. And I don't know what they mean that he thought he'd be okay in a month, and they would just drop it or something. It's like, no, I don't think so. You're not gonna to Jedi mind trick on the parole board they're just gonna let it go in a month from now. So anyways, when these hearings do come up, I'll tie together the hearings. I'll create a new playlist called The Return of or something. We're probably going to start seeing plenty of them, and we'll play it there so we can actually see the outcome. I almost forgot. Thank you, Richard, for sharing this. The one of the crimes that he's in for, such a peaceful guy, right? So March 3rd, 2017, Connecticut State Police have arrested a suspect accused of leading troopers on a pursuit through several towns while driving a stolen vehicle. Oh, man. While driving a stolen vehicle. According to police, Peter was driving a vehicle which was reported stolen. When the troopers tried to stop the vehicle, he took off, driving state roads for 26 miles. I bet you we can find the footage of this chase. This was in 2017. The 26-mile chase. I mean, that's quite a ride. He went through plenty of, I guess, counties or whatever. Troopers eventually surrounded the vehicle, at which point he rammed two cruisers. Police said that he was eventually stopped on Route 354. No injuries were reported. So he goes on a 26-mile chase. He gets surrounded. He rams them. He faces multiple charges, including first-degree larceny, interfering with an officer, assault on a public safety person, drinking while operating, reckless endangerment. In Louisiana, they would have charged him with attempted homicide. We've seen that many times. So he's lucky that they don't do that in Connecticut. Here's January 20. He was arrested. He was in his box truck, a stolen box truck. He went on that run in a box truck. Man, I mean, that could have done damage when he ran the police officers. That's pretty intense. A resident called the vehicle stolen. Police tried to stop him, but he kept going. Norwich police reached out to state police, who helped pursue him. He ended up in a culvert. He was taken into custody at 4:40 a.m. after a brief struggle, charged with third-degree larceny. And he's not a violent guy, right? He's just, he's just an old man, according to him. And let's see what else we have in his record. Whenever I go into this, I know Richard's still in the hospital. I haven't heard from him. I'll let you guys know when I do. I hope he's okay, but I always feel like I'm hanging out with him when I go through his work. So he has 2014. And remember, this only goes back 10 years because they stopped sharing records after 10 years. So pretty much as soon as a record's allowed to be here, we can see it. 2/4/2014. Actually 10 years and a month ago. He has, under suspicion of alcohol, I think he's a third DUI, 1 year in jail. 4/22/2014, guilty of That's it. Then he has the arrest in 2017 for the third-degree larceny. It looks like he was only sentenced 3 years in jail for running from the cops and then ramming into them and stealing a vehicle. And for him not to be like Connecticut, they take it easy on these guys. Wow.
And listen, I'm guilty of running. I can't, I'm not saying I'm not, I'm guilty. But what I need people to understand, and this is not even just for me, this is for other people going to that halfway house. And it's the same thing I said in court. And if you guys can get a hold of my court transcripts, you will see me saying this to the judge. I lost a good friend. He died on January 13th at that halfway house, Brett Cage. Brett Cage. And that's what needs to be known here. That halfway house needs to go under investigation. Like, this is crazy. They have people caged in there for months, refusing them to work. This is not like people are not trying to work there. People are getting refused jobs and are made to stay in that place, caged in, when this was supposed to be a work release program. And people are getting high because they have nothing else to do, and they are drinking themselves to death over there and doing drugs to death because they're caged in, they're not able to work, they're bored out of their mind, they have no type of communication with nobody, and nothing's being done at this halfway house. Even
we're about to watch a Connecticut rescission hearing, which is like a revocation hearing. He was at a halfway house and he absconded. I'm quite surprised by the approach that he takes. How do you think the parole board is going to react? Let's find out. And with that, let's jump in.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I'm just gonna be off camera. I don't think you can see me, but you can see the board members, okay?
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, we're ready. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, is everybody ready to get started?
Yep.
Good morning, my name is Parole Officer McLizzie. I'm a hearing examiner for the Board of Pardons and Paroles. Today is March 14th, 2024. And this is a rescission hearing for Caleb Hall, number 400095. And we do have board members present today. Could you identify yourself?
Jennifer Zaccanini.
Adam Rodriguez.
And this is a public hearing. Public access to this hearing is available via video live stream. Can you state your name and inmate number for the record?
Caleb Hall George 400095.
Thank you. And you do have an attorney here as well. Can you identify yourself for the record?
I'm attorney Brian Canning, jurist number 440011 on behalf of Caleb Hall.
Thank you. This is a rescission hearing to determine whether you have violated the conditions of your release. I will review and make findings of fact as to each of the charges against you. If I find that you have violated one or more conditions of your release, the board will consider whether or not your release should be rescinded. The decision made by the board today will be made final. This is an administrative hearing. The rules limiting the type of evidence admissible in a criminal trial do not apply in a parole rescission hearing. Disputed charges will be resolved by the preponderance of the evidence. The preponderance of the evidence means evidence that, taken as a whole, is more credible and convincing than the evidence offered in opposition to it. If at any time during this hearing you have any questions about the procedure, please feel free to ask me about them. At this hearing, you have certain rights, which I will now review with you. Did you receive written notice of the hearing, sir?
Yes.
Did you receive a packet of information, which includes the rescission notice and the information supporting the charges against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you have the right to be represented by an attorney at this hearing, and you do have counsel present today. You have the right to submit relevant documentary evidence, for example, letters or other written documents. Do you have any documentary evidence to submit today?
I do have a letter from one of his friends. I have copies I can walk over to.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. I can actually come and grab it. So if you want to just stay there, I can come and grab it. All right, so we do have an email here, it looks like, from Trevor Finelli. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. And the board, I don't know if you need a few minutes to review that. I'll just give the board a few minutes to review it and then we'll be back. Okay. At this hearing, you have the right to call and examine voluntary witnesses and to cross-examine adverse witnesses. Do you have any witnesses to testify today?
Nope.
Okay. Are you prepared to proceed with this hearing at this time?
Yes.
Okay. I will review each charge and inform you of the information underlying the charge. I will then ask you to admit or deny each charge, and it will give you an opportunity to respond to the charge. If you choose to make no reply to the charge, the hearing shall proceed and my decision will be made on the basis of the information available. At the conclusion of the fact-finding portion of the hearing, I will inform you of my findings. The hearing will then be turned over to the board to consider your suitability for re-release. Testimony at today's hearing will be taken under oath. Mr. Hall, can you please raise your right hand? You solemnly swear and solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Charge 1, new adverse information. Mr. Hall was heard at a discretionary parole hearing on 8/4/23 and was voted to parole on January 5th of 24. DOC released Mr. Hall to community release on 8/30 of 23. On December 24th of 23, Mr. Hall walked out of the Chase Center and did not return. On January 4th of 24, Mr. Hall turned himself in to the Hartford police. Mr. Hall later appeared in court on February 22nd of 24 and pleaded guilty to escape first degree. He received a 1-year jail sentence, execution suspended after 6 months. This was a consecutive sentence, and 1-day conditional discharge. And I just want to note that there was an error on the original rescission hearing notice. It said your parole eligibility date was in May, but since this is an 85% case because you have the underlying robbery second conviction. So this is an 85% case. So your parole eligibility date is July 24th of 24, and your EOS date is a 6/28 of 25. And I do have evidence, Exhibit A, Connecticut Board of Pardons and Paroles rescission notice. B is Connecticut Board of Pardons and Paroles response to rescission notice. C is Connecticut Board of Pardons and Paroles temp suspend letter dated January 16th of 24. D is Connecticut Judicial Branch case detail screen. E, Community Solutions incident report 12/24/23. F, Connecticut DOC incident report 1/4/24. G, Connecticut DOC disciplinary report. H, BOPP hearing dispo from 8/4/23. And I is a Connecticut Judicial Branch case details. So would you like to offer any response to this charge, counsel or Mr. Hall?
It's more towards the mitigation factors,
Okay.
not necessarily the charge itself.
Okay, so no response to the charge?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so I do make a finding on charge 1, new adverse information based upon the conviction and the evidence provided, which I find more credible than the testimony offered in opposition to it. So this concludes the fact-finding portion of the hearing. Attorney Canning, where does Mr. Hall wish to sponsor to if he's re-paroled?
He does have one lined up, a Kurtisha Poglich, and I did reach out to her. She's located at 63 Silky Road in North Granby. I spoke with her 2 days ago. She did say that she would be willing to sponsor him. I don't believe that she's been approved by parole yet, but she does have everything in line over there, and she is willing to take him in.
Okay, what's her name again?
Kurtisha, Curtissa. Poglich, Poglitsch.
Okay. Do you have a phone number for her? If so, I will grab it. Like, if you can just stay after the hearing, I will come over and grab that information, okay? Just to make sure I have it correct. Okay, perfect. All right, so as I noted earlier, Mr. Hall's parole eligibility date is the 7/24/24, and his end of sentence is 6/28/25. I will now turn the hearing over to the panel chair.
Thank you. Can I ask a question, Jesse? You have to admit or deny the charges or not?
Said that
We used to
one
do that,
portion,
but
however,
We don't anymore, I don't know.
let me see here.
And I guess in this case, it's
I-
pretty,
Yeah,
We
I mean,
usually do, but in this
If we
case,
usually
it's pretty
do.
self-explanatory, I guess.
yeah,
I mean, sir, do you admit that you left the halfway house?
I mean, yes,
Okay. What halfway house was he in?
Chase them.
Okay, Chase Center.
yeah.
Okay. All right, Mr. Hall, why'd you leave the halfway house? Burning question.
I was there from August to December 24th. As soon as I got there, I started an LLC. I got my EIN number the first week. I started my LLC for Phoenix Revival. They told me I could not run my business from there. I said, okay.
For what, I'm sorry, can you slow down for a second? You started your LLC for what?
And the business name is called Phoenix Revival.
Phoenix Revival?
Phoenix Revival, like the bird Phoenix.
Yeah, I just said that. Okay.
Oh, my fault. My fault. So they told me I could not run my business from in there. I said, okay. I got hired for a job. They denied me that job based on distance. The job was out in Hartford. It was from Hunk's Hauling and Moving Company. They denied me that off a distance. I got 4 more jobs that hired me. They denied me off a distance. Then I started putting interviews into Waterbury. They started messing around with my passes. Lashika, Monet, Sarai, and Carly. There was one Friday, this was an ongoing thing for 4 months, and it wasn't just me that was having this issue. A lot of us were having this issue. I have no excuse for running. I got tired. I was complaining to everybody I could. I talked to Parole Officer Grant. Nothing was being done. Every time I go into the office, I got somebody on the phone listening to these people denying me because that was the only way to save my butt, because I knew at some point I was coming back in here. And I don't want my family and everybody thinking I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, because all of them are supporting me right now. They've been supporting me for 10 years. I'm tired of this. They're tired of this. But they're tired of me being released somewhere where these people are supposed to help me get on my feet. And they are neglecting to do that. The Chase Center I was at, that was a horrible, horrible place. You got people ODing left and right every week.
In Waterbury? It's in
Yes,
Waterbury. You were in
on
Waterbury?
Cliff Street in Waterbury. But the parole paper says I was supposed to be in Hartford. It says initial town placement on the parole paper, Hartford. They put
Well,
me in
listen,
Waterbury.
I don't know why. Maybe there was no bed available in Hartford and they wanted to get you out.
And I get that. But the jobs I had lined up were all in Hartford. We're not talking about interviews. We're talking about definite jobs.
Right.
So they
How are you
denied
gonna
me
get from Waterbury to Hartford?
the bus. The bus
Oh,
schedule,
there's a bus that
everything,
goes from Waterbury to Hartford? Okay.
everything lined up. They had people working in Danbury, which was a 3-hour commute. I'm being denied an 1:42 commute all the time. I had an interview set up. It was a Friday. It was at 4:30. It was Shake Shack. That was out in South Windsor. The bus route was for 1:42. I put in the pass on a Thursday. They said I was set. I was straight. Friday morning, I go. This was the last pass. This was the last issue I had with these people. Friday, I go in the morning. I said, hey, I got my pass ready. They said, no, you don't have a pass. I go, I chase down my case manager. I say, yo, you said my pass was good. She said, parole denied you. I said, for what? She said, distance. Come to find out, this was a 5-day issue. Come to find out, parole never denied me. The director denied me and then apologized after the fact, because this was a big, big issue. Apologized after the fact and said it was a misunderstanding. Oh, but put in the interview again. The interview's done now. Shake Shack didn't want to mess with me again.
Yeah.
And this was an ongoing thing every single time.
All right.
And
So, obviously, I don't know the halfway house rules. I'm not sure what your restrictions are. So we can't speak to that. The bottom line is you left. You were under DOC custody. You wouldn't have left the prison, right?
all I have to say is if I would have stayed there, I would have OD'd. Right after I left, you had a death right in the house, right after I left. People were dying in that halfway house.
So let me ask you a question. When you left, where did you go?
I went to cool off. I went to a friend's house. I stayed there for Christmas and New Year's Eve, New Year's, and then I turned myself in on January 4th.
Where did you go? What town were you in?
I was in Hartford.
At whose house?
I don't want to say because I don't want to get them in trouble.
Oh, well, they're not going to get in trouble, but okay. So, and where are you asking to go live now?
I'm trying to go stay with my best friend's mom. She took care of me when I was younger. She's in North Granby. It's a great
And
environment.
How are you gonna get from North Granby to Hartford?
I have rides. I have transportation.
How are you gonna get from North Granby to Hartford?
My aunt, she lives in East Granby. She's my transportation.
So did you use while you were gone?
No, but I would have if I stayed in that halfway house.
Okay. Mr. Rodriguez?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Paul? Understandable.
I mean, it is. You really,
All right.
Can I
Okay.
say one thing?
Yeah,
please?
go ahead. Yeah.
And listen, I'm guilty of running. I can't, I'm not saying I'm not, I'm guilty. But what I need people to understand, and this is not even just for me, this is for other people going to that halfway house. And it's the same thing I said in court. And if you guys can get a hold of my court transcripts, you will see me saying this to the judge. I lost a good friend. He died on January 13th at that halfway house, Brett Cage. Brett Cage. And that's what needs to be known here. That halfway house needs to go under investigation. Like, this is crazy. They have people caged in there for months, refusing them to work. This is not like people are not trying to work there. People are getting refused jobs and are made to stay in that place, caged in, when this was supposed to be a work release program. And people are getting high because they have nothing else to do, and they are drinking themselves to death over there and doing drugs to death because they're caged in, they're not able to work, they're bored out of their mind, they have no type of communication with nobody, and nothing's being done at this halfway house. Even with this death, I'm talking to people that are still there. Parole just comes in and shakes up the place or whatever, but it's still an ongoing thing. How many more deaths need to happen? ODs need to happen at this place for it to be shut down. Like this, I'm sorry, I'm just passionate about this because this is crazy. When I was there, people were asking for help and nobody was getting help. And Carly, Ivory, Sarai, and all of them are the issue because nobody's doing nothing. You had John and Renee who were lower level supervisors and they were doing more than them. You see what I'm saying? I got written up 6 times for being told that I didn't do my chores when all that needed to happen was that they needed to talk to second shift. Carly, the supervisors, everybody did not want to do their jobs. It took John, who's a lower level supervisor, to just ask second shift, hey, did he do the chores at 10 o'clock at night so he didn't have to do them in the morning? Yes. The tickets were thrown out. I did everything I was supposed to do at that halfway house. I started my business. I couldn't run it. Cool. I took it to the chin, started getting jobs, took it to the chin when I got denied those, started getting interviews, took it to the chin when I got denied those. It got tiring. I'm sorry for running. I can't take that back, but I turned myself in because I'm tired. I am tired. I've said this before, but I want to be in a place that's actually going to help me. And with the address, they've been my support. I wanted to do a halfway house because I wanted to prove I was more mature enough to handle it. And I don't want to say I'm not mature because I did everything I was supposed to. I still have all my support. None of my support left. They told me if you go back to jail, we're leaving. They're still here because they understand because I was on the phone with them every day over there. And they listen to these people denying me.
All right. Well, listen, I don't want you to lose sight of your goals. You need to keep working on you. Okay, Mr. Hall? Right?
Yes,
Don't
ma'am. Yes,
get discouraged or down. You just have to stick with your plan and your program. Are we good with the eligibility date? Okay. In the matter of Caleb Hall, inmate number 400095, I'll make a motion to rescind parole and re-parole on your eligibility date of July 24, 2024. With the following conditions: no consumption of alcoholic beverages, general no contact with Farmington Bank on Broad Street in New Britain, a mental health evaluation and treatment if it's deemed necessary, halfway house placement only if it's needed. I know you've proposed a sponsor, but they need to look into that and confirm and approve it. Is there a second to the motion? All in favor? Aye. Go ahead.
One more thing, I don't know if I need to or whatever, but if that address does not work, I do have another address that would be in Hartford.
Yeah, you can give that to the parole officer. You don't give it to us.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. All right.
All right. Good luck. To you, sir.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Canning.
Thank you.
thank you.
Attorney Canning, I'll be right over to get that information, okay?
Okay,
So you said when's my parole eligibility date?
July 24th,
July 24th? Okay,
the same as the court date, as the court sentence runs.
the court date?
No, the sentence, your new 6-month
Oh,
sentence.
okay.
So it's the earliest that you could have gotten.
All right. Thank you, man. Thank you.
You're over.
I don't really know what I just saw again. I like it. It starts off with him just sitting there in his chair, and then they mention his attorney, and he starts shaking his head. I don't know. They waited about 5 minutes. I fast forwarded for you guys. If you remember way back at the beginning, they mentioned the email from his attorney, and I believe it's the attorney that we're familiar with is the name that they mentioned, not the attorney who's representing him, who seemed to have absolutely no enthusiasm for this case. Just tone of his voice, even the way that he handled or didn't handle the case, I thought, letting his client just say things that, I don't know, I guess, it's interesting because in some sense, I do believe what he's saying in the idea that he's trying to work. They're saying it's too far. The people that are dying at the halfway house, which shouldn't be happening, right? I mean, that's something that you would think the halfway house, it should have a repercussions if there's a high fatality rate. They're supposed to be keeping narcotics out. And Richard did find the obituary of his friend, Brett William Cage. It doesn't give the cause of death, but he was a known dealer and user, which might support Caleb's concern that if he stayed at the halfway house, he'd be using. So it's interesting. He did run away, and look, the way that he handled the whole hearing, you might say was not very tactful, but at the same time, if he didn't have any dirty urines and people around him were dying, and maybe the assumption is that it's overdose, and he left because he felt it was an unsafe environment. Not a smart move, but in some ways, maybe understandable. I know it's kind of, you might be surprised that I'm in some ways, but it's like, of course, I don't know. What do you do? It seems like his hands were tied, but never a good idea to kind of mouth off at the parole board. But then again, I don't know. I'm confused about it. How do you feel? So he got, I think, a new charge for absconding, which was 6 months. And then he's going to have a parole date in 6 months, which is my understanding again. And we'll, was it a new charge? I don't know. I'm a little confused, but it seems he has another 6 months. He got the minimum, basically, and we'll cover his parole hearing when that comes up. But I'll share with you what he was originally charged with. Thank you, Richard, for the info. So in 2021, 3/9/2021, the defendant, he appealed the judgment of conviction rendered following a jury trial. So he took a jury trial, robbery of the second degree. The defendant claims that the evidence was insufficient to prove without a reasonable doubt that he threatened the use of what he represented by his words with the conduct to be a deadly weapon or a dangerous instrument. On the basis of evidence, the pre-sentencing trial, the jury reasonably could have found the following facts. At approximately 4:10 p.m. on April 28, 2017, the defendant entered a branch of Farmington Bank in New Britain. This is a bank robbery. The defendant was dressed in a dark, baggy clothing, including a sweatshirt with the hood pulled over his head. The defendant is approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall and skinny, had a skinny build. The defendant remained in the lobby of the bank at approximately 1 hour, during which time he went to a workstation in the middle of the bank. That's real smart. Hang out in the lobby for an hour. That's not inconspicuous. Where he picked up a pen and piece of paper. He then sat in a guest chair with a magazine or brochure in his lap, which he began writing. While in the bank, during which time his activities were recorded by bank surveillance cameras, he occasionally held to his ear what appeared to be a cell phone. Shortly after 5 p.m., the defendant approached the teller station at which Jessica, a bank supervisor, was working the counter, and the teller station was slightly taller than the defendant's waist. and rising from either side of the station, where the dividers about the same height as the defendant's shoulders. The divider supported a piece of glass that separated Martinez and the defendant. The defendant positioned his head such that he was hovering over the glass during an interaction with Martinez. Martinez asked the defendant how she could assist him. The defendant then passed a withdrawal ticket to Martinez and mumbled, "Give me all the money and no one will get hurt." The front side of the withdrawal ticket had 4/28/17 handwritten on the date line, Anthony Springer handwritten on the name line, Anthony handwritten on the signature line. On the back side of the withdrawal ticket was written note which stated, "Give me all the money, no one gets hurt. It's in my sweatshirt. Make it quick. Hundreds, 50s, 20s, 10s, 5s. Make it quick." Martinez, acting under the belief that something could possibly happen if she did not comply with the defendant's demand, gave the defendant $613. Man, well, it's like, why rob a bank? You're going to get the highest likelihood of getting caught. You know, the police are going to take it seriously. It's a federal offense. And all you get is $613. I don't get why people rob banks. I really don't. There's got to be hotter targets. The defendant left the bank at 5:05 p.m. The police were called and arrived. The bank approximately 3 minutes later. Look at that response time. James Wozniak, an officer at the New Britain Police Department, arrived at the bank where he found Martinez, who appeared in shock and was emotional crying. You see that? Even something like this affects someone so much, right? A state forensic laboratory analyzed the defendant's note and found both latent fingerprints and DNA on it. You know, the guy doesn't wear gloves. Meanwhile, he has those hand tattoos, right? That would, if anything, give him up. Analysis of the evidence supported finding the one fingerprint matched the defendant's right index finger and two other fingerprints matched the right middle finger. The DNA found on the note was determined to be consistent with the defendant. The fingerprints analysis led the police to the defendant, and they attempted to locate him in the address, who was dating the defendant at the time of the robbery. Lived at this address where they were when the police arrived. Two New Britain police officers spoke with Santiago, who provided the police with 2 cell phone numbers and she had used to communicate with the defendant. Identified the cell phone numbers with the defendant to contact her around the time of the robbery. The police obtained the cell phone records for this number and executed a search warrant. Why would he go to trial? They literally did their job. DNA, fingerprints, cell phone records that match up with it. I mean, it's all there. Records show that at 4:40 and 5:06 on the date of the robbery, the defendant's phone accessed the cellular antenna. I mean, why would he take a jury trial? And then he's so lucky. It seems he takes a jury trial, he gets found guilty, and he gets really a slap on the sentence, which he gets paroled out of pretty early. Come on. The defendant was arrested on October 19, 2017, on August 22nd, 2018, by the way of a two-count long-form information. The state charged the defendant with 1 count of robbery. The case was tried jury. The third day of the trial, immediately thereafter, the defendant orally moved for a okay. The state rested September 27th, 2018. The third day of the trial, immediately thereafter, the defendant orally moved for a judgment of acquittal. The court denied the motion. Why? It's like, no, just acquit it. The court is like, no. So, followed by the closing arguments of counsel, the court then delivered the charge. The jury began to deliberate. Later that day, the jury returning. I wonder how long they actually waited. On October 2nd, 2018, the defendant filed a motion for judgment of acquittal. Why? So then the court sentenced the defendant to a period of 7 years of incarceration on each of the 2 counts. Immediately after sentencing, the trial court noted that one of those counts had to be dismissed because you can't be guilty of 2 counts of that one single act. Accordingly, the court concluded that the second count was dismissed pursuant to case law. That's interesting. Followed additional facts. Procedural history will be set forth as necessary. I mean, how was it even set up that he could be found guilty of 2 of the same acts? Unless that's just something that the DA set forth so that he could be found innocent. Well, I don't know. How does that even happen where you could be found guilty of the same thing? That's confusing to me. The defendant claims that the evidence was insufficient. Yeah, it doesn't sound very insufficient. To prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he had threatened the use of a weapon. Okay, so that's what he's claiming. I see. Okay, that's interesting. So he's not saying he wasn't there, that he didn't do it, but he's saying there's no evidence or that there's sufficient doubt that he threatened the use of what he represented by his words to be a deadly weapon. Okay, I hear that. We begin our analysis by setting forth the well-settled standard review, the evidence claim whereupon we apply to part test first we can shoot jury must find every element proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Of course. I'm just scrolling through this. I'll put the link in the description. I mean, the bottom line is that she thought he had a weapon, and that's, I think, all that matters. He insinuated one. Now he's saying, well, there's no guarantee proof. There's a reasonable doubt that maybe I never implied I had a weapon, but they're just not going to take his word over her word. In the court, the commission of the crime immediate flight therefrom, such person displays threatens the use of such person represents such person words conduct. Can you imagine being so desperate in need for whatever it is that you need that you would yeah, I'm just going to go pick up a felony and spend the next half a decade in prison for $500, $600. All right. And he lost the appeal. But when you look at it, he kind of got, and maybe they took it easy on him because he didn't have a weapon. 7 years is a pretty serious sentence, but maybe if he had one, he would have gotten a longer one. We've seen different bank robberies, though, so let's see. My question is that if someone doesn't actually use a weapon, should they get a more lenient sentence? I would argue yes. He got 731 days jail, which was, I guess, time served with parole for 2 years. And these are his different records. So in 2013, he has a burglary 3rd degree for 731 days in jail with special parole after 2 years. In I don't know. There's something else. This is 12/10/2013, which is like a month later. I don't know. I guess he has another 3rd degree burglary. It might be the same charge. He has something in 3/9/2016. So 3 years later, basically a year after getting out, he gets interfering with an officer, sentenced to 30 days in jail. In 2017, he gets another interfering with an officer. He got 4 months in jail. In 10/9/2017, he got this charge of 7 years. And then most recently in 1/12/2024, he got the escape charge, which he was sentenced to 1 year of jail, executed after 6 months. So yeah, he did pick up a new charge, and that's why he will have parole in 6 months, but he's not being forced to serve more time on that. So this guy can't stay out of trouble. However you feel about his reasons or excuses, or he simply can't stay out of his way. I think Louisiana would have just thrown the book at him and made him back all of his time. Connecticut, they're not, they're a little bit more lenient. But I mean, let's just, in the past decade, really, which is the only record that we have, because they only back up 10 years of his record. I undoubtedly would be surprised if his record goes back much longer. But it seems he hasn't spent more than a year out of jail or prison. So anyways, that's sad. But what can you do? And with that, I'll let you.
What's up out there, fans? Like the videos, share them, see if you can get them out there. Hopefully I'll see you guys soon on stage and we'll rock it out. Just remember, you know, you'll be seeing a guy with a big hat, 1970 model resistol, old school. That's the way I like to roll. There again, just get in touch with me via Facebook. There again, I can't get in touch with, you know, I can't return everybody's message, so please be patient. But it does help me. It does give me the drive to keep going and make my fans happy, because that's what I want to do.